My friends, distinguished alumni of Camp Pathfinder, it's an honor to be standing before you. No problem. I have the opportunity to cover the decades of the 60s, the 70s, pardon me, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s in 10 minutes. So I'm going to spend 9 of those minutes sort of with an introduction leading to the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But I want to thank my distinguished colleague, Lance Kennedy, for setting the bar so high. In all seriousness, first I want to thank the organizers of this tremendous good use of human resources. I've seen panel members actually cleaning up trash after an event. So I think you're utilizing the talent in this camp in many ways and effectively. For me to cover these 3 sort of decades, and actually I've been here for more than those, off and on, it really brings back a flood of memories as I was thinking about this. And also, just in less than 2 days, I've met so many people that have triggered so many stories, so many fond times, just it's unbelievable. So I'm going to just try to pick some highlights out of these decades that they're highlights through my lenses, all right, as a camper and a staff here at Pathfinder. So I hope that what I can do is trigger in you, as I mentioned some of my memories and some of the highlights, your memories and your highlights. I hope there's some relationship there. I think just by the fact that you're here, that you've met people that you've known, you're going to feel that same connection. You've already felt that, so it's. I hope to continue on enhancing that. In defining camp, you have to first, I see it sort of in 5 components. One is Algonquin Park itself, which in my mind has relatively been unchanged. So I'm not going to talk about that or refer to that too much. And then there is Camp Pathfinder, the infrastructure, how it looks. To me, that has remained, in my eyes, relatively the same. Many improvements, no question about it, but it's been done in such a way that it's maintained the integrity of what we know as Pathfinder. And as you walk around, I've had several people who haven't been here in a long time say, nothing's changed. Well, when you really dig deep, a lot has changed, all for the good, in my mind. And but for them to say nothing's changed is so heartwarming. And I think that's a credit to the ownership of the camp over time, that any improvements they've made within the infrastructure has been done with a real respect for what is Pathfinder. So I applaud that. And of course, there's always the in-camp program, which has gone through, I think, over time, a variety of, let's say, emphasis within camp. And what's wonderful to see is that it's at a vibrant and energetic phase, and that's a credit to all the staff that have been involved that are more directly responsible for the in-camp program. The tripping program, if you missed the tripping presentation with the directors of tripping, I thought it was remarkable. I just sat there in awe. I was able to moderate it along with Steve, and it was fascinating to hear what's going on in tripping today. It's just, when I think back so many years, there seemed to be sort of a continual continuity of what we did, and then all of a sudden there was a burst of change, improvements in my mind, and staff development in terms of headmen and trip staff and that, which just impressed me greatly. So I applaud all of you for that. And then what, in my mind a lot, I don't know why I thought about this when I was thinking in terms of making a presentation on the decades. Each decade in my mind is defined by the personalities of the people in that decade. And And when I think of camp, to me, for me, it's definitely a family and extended family. There's no question about it. So I can't disregard, I can't disregard the personality. So I may touch on those. So let me get started. 1950s.
You only got 2 minutes.
I'm getting signals, and you can laugh if you want down here. Anyways, I came to camp as a 4-year-old. And soon thrown into the Micmacs at 4 years old, and it was just phenomenal. I mean, this island was overwhelming to me. I mean, I couldn't believe how big it was. And then I realized as I got older that my legs started to grow, and it wasn't as big as I thought it was. But I can remember going over to the other side of the mainland, waiting for the train. We came up on the advance party, my parents and I. And we came up on the advance party, and to go over to the mainland waiting for the train was a highlight, because we would look for the smoke coming out of the train, coming around the bend, and watching the campers get off the train, and some staff for that matter. But that was an event that I never got to participate in, and the stories that I heard were very interesting from the train ride, so that was a joy. As far as camp during the 50s, to me, it was built around personalities. And those personalities started with Chief Norton. You know, they went to Nick Zona, who was sort of the staff supervisor. There was E.K. Smith. That's a name that's not commonly thrown around, but that was Chief's right-hand person, always walking around the island with Chief with a clipboard. If you've seen Glenn Arthur's with his clipboard, you might think of E.K. Smith, if you would. So, you know, there's also people like Ralph Tishner, and Ralph and Edna Tishner, and Ralph was with Chief for a long, long time. And when I knew him, he was director of canoe tripping back in the 50s, involved in Power Crew. There was Ray Clippinger, a name that not many of you may remember. But Ray and Mary were up here for a vast number of years, once again from Rochester. Ray was the director of business, for lack of a better term. And then, of course, my dad, Norm Roggow, who ended up being he ran the swim dock, and he also taught non-swimmers. How many people here taught? The great story about Father at the swim dock, or at the small crib there by the motorboat dock. Dick Swift reminded me that when the water got really cold in Source Lake, and you were a non-swimmer, and you were reluctant, as he was, to go in the water to learn how to swim, Father had underneath one of the beams that supported the dock, he had a thermostat. And he would literally reach under and turn that thermostat to warm the water. True story, right there. That's a true story. He also taught non-swimmers how to swim by using a rope often. And he would put it around their waist, and he would walk from one end of the crib, holding them to the other end to support them, because they were feeling a little insecure about swimming. Well, over the course of several days, you know, it's funny how that rope just used to loosen and loosen and loosen until the point that they were actually swimming on their own from one end to the other. And then my mother was here, and I have to count her. And Mother later on took care of my father in his ailing years while he was still at camp. But also she taught rowing, and thanks to the kindness of Mac Rand, they both were able to stay up here until Mother completed her 50th summer. So that's when she left. She passed away a year ago, July. She was 100 and almost a half years old. And today, the Roggow family, grandchildren Kristen and Mike and my sister and her husband and Diane and Bill Jabs and a few other people, and I'm sure I'm going to leave out names, but later ashes under the Roggow cabin, as well as down by the rowboat dock. So just so you know. Okay, I'm not even through the 50s. Good. All right. Okay, really. I'm going to move fast. Fred Lampke and Amy Purdy. Mrs. Purdy, Bob Young is in the crowd here, and Amy Purdy is his grandmother. And he reminded me that Mrs. Purdy, who was just a wonderful person, cooked on a wood stove for 30 years here at Pathfinder. And Fred Lampke, who was sort of the, well, I would think that maybe Gil is probably the future Fred Lampke here. So, but he chopped all the wood for that wood stove, as well as did a multitude of other things. I didn't mention Lou Montgomery, and I want to mention Monty, because most of you know him. Where you are right now used to be a vibrant track and field. The 40-yard dash ran right down there, the laps, around the 16 laps to a mile. Right over here was the pole vault, high jump pit. That's where we campers learn how to do learn track and field events. Shot put was down by where the backstop is. So if you were up here then, I think that will probably trigger some memories for you. As far as tripping back then, my remembrances are with Pat Hodson and with Roy Thrall, and they were just wonderful times. Dave Bonner happened to be, who is here. I'm mentioning a lot of people that are here. Dave Bonner was my staff, one of my Ottawa years. If you could just raise your hand if you were here in the 50s. Okay, if you all, the rest of you, keep them up, please. If the rest of you could just look around. If you want to know anything about the 50s, okay, take a look. Ask some people. Okay, I could talk about Indian lore, but Gyro has kicked me twice, so I'm going to move on to the 60s. All right? Okay? In the 60s, my father Chief had a falling out. We came back in 62. I became a head man, never having been a staff prior. So, need to say I was nervous, but I was taken under the wing by the members of the advance party, including Bob Cokrey and Bob Ludwig, Bill Salmonen, Ralph Davis, Ken Lowe, and I left someone out, but that's all right. But it was a fantastic group of people to offer me the support that I needed. Once again, when Swifty bought the camp in 62, and Frank Horton was his partner, and Steve is here, son of Frank, you need to talk to him. That was a turning point. That returned the focus, I believe, to canoe tripping. And the Swift family, some of which are sitting down here, including Sue and Kathy, they deserve a lot of credit. And so, there's stories about the original Forest 5. I'm going to eliminate those. And Roger Hampshire and Dick DeLong, those are a couple names that stand out in my mind, in case some of you remember them. Roger was a song leader, but he also ran the swim dock for a number of years. Moving on to the 70s. I am really moving fast, but this was the early 70s when I was director of tripping. I had as a head man group, a group that actually had two future owners of camp in it. That's Mac and Glenn. And then a camper named Mike Sladden, I think, was in the early 70s. So I thought that was interesting. And if you all know Jim Kennedy, known as Nails, he was also part of our group, along with Mark Thrall, who was one of Roy's sons, along with Jeff. But management of that group was very difficult and very challenging. If you were here for the tripping talk, we explored new areas like Kippawa and even farther west from Algonquin Park, and expanded our tripping in Temagami. So I think that's something that I want to recognize. I'm not going to, I have notes here to talk for 5 minutes on something called zero environmental impact. But because of the invocation and the speaker who gave it, I'm gonna, so impressed by that, I'm gonna withhold my comments. Maybe later tonight. So I'm gonna close because I know there are other speakers, but I just want to say, to have a group like this in front of me, as you're be able to offer my feelings and my perspective, some of my feelings and perspective on camp, and to be able to connect with you, so many of you I know, is just an honor. So, and it's gonna last for a long time.